Hello, in today's lesson we're going to be talking about government and free enterprise. This is Chapter 3, Section 3, Part 1. So in the American economic system, we oftentimes talk about free enterprise. However, we have to realize that free enterprise is not completely the entire name of the game here. Most production decisions do lie with the buyers and sellers. They're the ones who determine how much of a product is made. But other decisions are made by different levels of government. So the part that's made by these buyers and sellers, this is called the private sector. And the decisions made by the government is called the public sector. How do we decide which sector of the economy should produce a good or service? If all the costs are borne by and all benefits go to the buyer and seller, the free enterprise sector or the private sector produces it. But if you have a market failure, the government or the public sector sometimes provides the good or service, and these are called public goods. A public good is technically a market failure, and when we think about the word failure, we think about problematic. And not all market failures are a problem, but the government does have to figure out a way to resolve that issue to make our economy run more efficiently. A market failure occurs when people who are not part of a marketplace interaction benefit from it or pay parts of the cost. Public goods are funded with taxes collected by government. And here are some examples of those public goods: public parks, street lighting, drainage systems, and the police. Characteristics of public goods. There are two characteristics. The first one is that people cannot be excluded from the benefits of the product even though they do not pay for it. And the other one is that one person's use of the product does not reduce its usefulness to others. An example of this would be like street lighting. So you can't just turn the street lights on when one person drives down the road because they paid for it and then flip the lights off when someone else drives down the road who didn't pay for it. But also, it doesn't reduce how useful those lights are when one person drives by to the next person driving by. They're still just as useful every single time. But not everybody necessarily paid for the street lights. National defense was another example given, and that all these services would be provided, but not necessarily everybody paying for those services. And we'll talk about how the government kind of enforces that and makes sure that everybody kind of pays their piece of the pie. Free riders. There's no incentive for businesses to provide good or public goods because people will not voluntarily pay for them. In general, most people do not like paying taxes. Most people do not like paying for these services that they think everybody should be entitled to. And so therefore, if we left it completely up to the citizens to decide if they wanted to pay for them, generally they will not. And so this is where we run into this free rider problem. A free rider problem is a person who avoids paying for a good or service, but who benefits from that good or service anyway. And the example here is the 4th of July fireworks display. Now, if you think about the Fire on the Mountain that they do here in Birmingham, where they have the big fireworks show for the 4th of July, some of that is paid for through the taxes that are paid within the city of Birmingham. But those people who do not live in the city of Birmingham oftentimes will drive to Birmingham to see those fireworks. And so those people who are driving from out of the city or even out of the state to enjoy that display are considered free riders. They're enjoying a good or a service that they did not pay for. Governments attempt to address the free rider problem through the use of taxes to pay for goods and services, so everybody pays a little bit. Another example of a free rider would be like a road. So if you have a road in your community, that road may have existed way before you were even born, and somebody else paid the taxes to provide that road for you, but that road still exists. And so you're not paying for that good or service, somebody else paid for it, but you are now benefiting from that. Public and private sectors and their shared responsibilities. Some goods can be provided by either the public sector or the private sector. An example of this is toll goods. And so you may be thinking about like a toll bridge. If you ever go down to the beach, you might decide to take the toll bridge because it's faster than having to go all the way around. So toll goods are goods consumed by the public as a group, but people can be excluded from using them. So if you don't feel like paying that toll, and you're okay with going all the way around, you might choose to do that instead of paying this extra fee. Both public and private sectors share the responsibility for national infrastructure. We define infrastructure as consisting of all the goods and services that are necessary for the functioning of society. A lot of times if you hear politicians talking about infrastructure, usually they're mentioning like roads and bridges and highways, transit systems and things like that. But it also does include sewer systems, education, and even health. So both of them have an obligation to take care of this infrastructure because it helps to benefit the economy. The economy cannot run without these things. So both private and public sector do contribute to the national infrastructure. This concludes part 1 of chapter 3, section 3.